We begin with the confirmed now account of the Justice Department blatantly opening what are described as criminal probes into two individuals without, at least as of tonight, any clear justification for this. And coming after the news cycle Nicole Wallace just mentioned, and after Donald Trump's calls to threaten, arrest, jail these individuals, it looks very suspicious. We're talking about two Obama-era intelligence and law enforcement officials who have been, based on their experience, critical, exercising their First Amendment rights, of course, of Donald Trump and his administration. The reporting began on Fox. Fox News Digital, coming up with this story, NBC and other outlets have confirmed it, that the DOJ has criminal probes open into the CIA Director John Brennan and the FBI Director James Comey. That itself is significant. Indeed, you cannot think of another time in the modern era, since the Nixon era, where two such senior officials who ran the FBI and CIA were both under investigation at the same time and farmed out in an announcement to an outlet that, at the very least, can be described as highly friendly with the current administration, indeed intertwined when you look at staffing. The FBI is not commenting. A lawyer for James Comey had no public comment. Brennan has spoken out. Many former officials, as you know if you follow the news, speak out. Sometimes they do interviews. Sometimes they do enough interviews that they are tied to a given outlet. In this case, we should note Brennan is an MSNBC contributor. And I want to play more of what was a newsworthy interview that he spoke to Nicole Wallace today.
I think this is, unfortunately, a very sad and tragic example of the continued politicization of the intelligence community, of the national security process. And quite frankly, I'm really shocked that, individuals who are willing to sacrifice their reputations, their credibility, their decency to continue to do Donald Trump's bidding on something that clearly is just
politically based. His criticism there for the president, who he clearly views as responsible for what may be selective prosecution, the kind of thing that people are sanctioned for, people sometimes lose their jobs over. In rare cases, sometimes they themselves can be investigated for. Now, these investigations, as I mentioned, have come out at a curious time, announced in a big way to Fox, but very little is known. Indeed, the Comey case, according to the Fox initial report and NBC News follow-on, does not state the reason. So it could be or might not be related to some of the other ways he's been in the news recently. Brennan, however, has a source where a person who was briefed indicated, as Brennan discussed, and Nicole Wallace and I were just discussing, that there's an indication that Trump's CIA director, Mr. Radcliffe, made this criminal referral to the DOJ about Brennan. Now, either there's some brand new smoking gun evidence, and if that emerges, we'll report it, or you have what looks like someone who took the new job under Trump going after the guy who had the old job. And that is not a cycle that you want to play out, especially when our nation's secrets, intelligence, and the CIA are involved. There was allegedly an internal CIA review as recently as last week, which itself is suspicious given how old the issues are, criticizing the same old Russia thing that Brennan handled, the 2017 intelligence assessment regarding Putin meddling in the 2016 election in a manner that required a criminal referral. Now, even if you give them the benefit of the doubt and say some of those issues look differently now, there are very few experts, let alone lawyers or judges, who think it would be good for American national security to treat every difference of conclusion about our intelligence as a criminal matter for DOJ to investigate or prosecute. The reports and the criticisms are that this is none of the above, that it's not really about Russia or new facts, but rather an alleged abuse of power by Trump officials to continue to go after his perceived critics and opponents in the United States. A lot of evidence for that when you remember that we don't know if this is linked to the original Comey probe, but they made a big deal out of a beach seashell post he did on Instagram. You have other Democrats, as you see on your screen, targeted or investigated. And you have on the upper left a less famous but current lawmaker who is awaiting trial at the hands of this same DOJ for a brief incident outside an ICE facility. We are joined by Andrew Weissman. He is tied to this story, as other former officials would be, because he was, of course, a key prosecutor in the Mueller probe. As I mentioned, Andrew, to Nicole, and reminding viewers, you also held the job of FBI General Counsel, which goes right to the heart of how these issues are supposed to be resolved legally. I have a lot of questions for you. First, welcome. Thanks for joining me on this news night.
Yep, nice to be here. This is certainly very concerning. allegations.
Yeah. So let's start first with the most basic law. Then I want to broaden out to the context, because we are not going to close our eyes like Lady Justice is supposed to. We're journalists. Our eyes are open. But first, have you ever seen a legitimate probe opened in the Brennan matter regarding what is described as some disagreement or differing views about an intelligence assessment? Is that normal or on the level?
So if we don't know, and I think it's really important for people to understand, we don't really know what the government has. And so that what you're raising could be, what is at the heart of this, which is just one person concludes X and the other person concludes Y. They just have a difference. I don't even think that's what's going on. From what we know, the idea that you're going to criticize John Brennan and many other people for simply thinking that it's important to investigate whether Russia interfered in the 2016 election, that is not an open factual issue.
Right.
Russia interfered in the 2016 election. It is in black and white during the Mueller investigation.
Would there be you need a predicate if you're following the law. Is there any factual basis for a crime there?
There's none that I can think of at all. I mean, the only thing that I see so far, and again, we don't know what the government has, is what you raised, which is actually the actions of John Ratcliffe. That is the only thing that I'm seeing that appears to be improper here, because the idea that you would open an investigation, it's been leaked. That's sort of red flag number one. That's not what you do if you've got a criminal investigation. The Department of Justice is supposed to keep that under wraps. So there's a violation of DOJ rules, and that seems to be because they want the story out there.
Right.
That's not what DOJ or the CIA should be doing. Two, the issue of relitigating 2016, as Nicole sort of went through, that has been decided over and over and over again. It is in black and white in 2 indictments. It was decided in a Senate report that Marco Rubio signed onto and said was the most thorough report that he had seen. I mean, this is one where it's just not debatable.
And so I'm only going to move you along because I think that's established. Then there is a larger question over whether this is potentially abuse of power and illicit prosecution, which is the kind of thing that, if substantiated, is, I should note, a potentially impeachable offense for people keeping track of the Constitution's limits here. That's separate from the, of course, criminal immunity that the Supreme Court gave Trump. But this is the context. I'm going to play something that some people might say, we got to hear this again. But if we were in court, this is the context for the government going after these 2 individuals. Take a listen to Donald Trump.
I think they're very dishonest people. I think they're crooked as hell, and maybe they have to pay a price for that.
Criticizing James Comey, calling the former FBI director cowardly.
He's a showboat. He's a grandstander. The FBI has been in turmoil.
What he did was horrible. Should he be locked up? Let somebody make a determination.
Mr. Trump doubled down, attacking Brennan on Twitter, calling him the worst director in history.
I've never respected him. I've never had a lot of respect.
The question is whether the DOJ is being politicized to take potentially action against the rules because of those calls by the president over the times you just saw. Andrew, I want to get your response. We're back with Andrew.
Và tiếp theo thì mình sẽ tô màu mặt